I've been gaming long enough to be deeply embarrassed by it. And amongst all that shame, the My Time series stands out as a true guilty pleasure amongst guilty pleasures. My Time at Pathea, released in 2019, but I got into it during the pandemic lockdowns, dropped 30 or 40 hours in the Switch version, and then moved on to something else. I don't know what, maybe bread making. Sandrock, released in 2023, and the next entry, My Time at Evershine, just had a Kickstarter, but no release date announcement yet. The series falls into that broad category of dating sim or farm life sim, although you could probably fight me there and I would not argue. If you've been keeping up with my videos, you might recall that I was raised on a farm, birthed from the raw clay and molded into some kind of apple-picking automaton. Oh, how I suffered. So, why do I like farming games? I don't know. People are complicated. Harvest Moon doesn't make you clear raccoon traps with a claw hammer. And this isn't really a farming game. My Time has the genealogy of a Stardew Valley. You, the stranger, comes to a new town, claims a plot of land, cultivates crops, and starts revitalizing and glad-handing. But rather than focus on a farmer, the My Time series has us play a builder, a combination mason, carpenter, blacksmith, farmer, lover, and psycho killer, as we navigate a continuous story while managing our business. It has all those established Stardew trends, gift-giving, dungeon crawling, time management, and so on. There's a lot to cover here, as there's a lot of game. It took me around 105 hours to grab all the achievements. About 90 of those were actually a continuous story, which is both impressive and daunting. I'll start with what immediately alarmed me, and then go into what charmed me.
I'm good, Doc. I'm good.
Yeah, it's healed.
Surely a bird would never mislead us.
Impossible. Animals are pure of heart.
I'll take 20.
I'll take 20.
Graphically, this is a really pretty game that takes some getting used to. The main character and most of the supporting cast are done in a kind of doll-like cartoon style, reminiscent of the first game. Big heads and noodle arms. But there's a handful of characters rendered in a more proportionally realistic style, as the third game seems to be trending towards. I did get used to this pretty quick, but at first walking into town and seeing Owen felt really jarring and uncomfortable, like half the characters in this town are children and the other half are adult hunks. I suppose there's all kinds of body types, but this seems to go beyond that into a clash of character design. It doesn't last too long. Once you get to know the supporting cast, their appearances don't really matter so much, and they all look a sight better than some of the Pathea characters. The world of Sandrock is a lively desert, and notably not a wasteland. There's the constant complement of warm desert and crisp sky tones, plus splashes of color in every nook and cranny. The town itself has a lived-in, ramshackle feel. It all combines together to present a very idyllic but strange Western experience that I haven't really encountered before. Oh, and it's a post-apocalypse. That really surprised me in Pathea. The series takes place 300 years-ish after a technologically advanced civilization extincted itself in a war that nobody remembers. Their weapons raised the seabeds, blotted out the skies, and mutated wildlife into horrible monsters. As you talk with characters and learn more about the world, it's rough. Not a brutal, grimdark Warhammer thing, but a dangerous world slowly healing from a great battle, occasionally limping over an old landmine. There's a dominant religion, the Church of Light, preaching towards preventing another apocalypse by restricting technology use. And there's nations politicking and land grabbing in the background until it spills into the main story. And yet the setting is goofy.
I love doing horrible things and announcing it to the world.
There really aren't many games with light-hearted Western settings. It's basically this and West of Loathing. The builder comes to Sandrock, once a lively town built around an oasis, nearly destroyed when prospectors discovered vast old-world ruins near the town. Profiteers came to strike it rich, dug valleys into the landscape as they strip-mined for precious relics, and strained the ecosystem, depleting the oasis and driving the whole area into desertification. The people who remain are mostly stubborn weirdos with deep family roots, and we get to make friends with all of them. The mechanics of the game are fairly standard for the genre, just pointing in a slightly different direction and with some notable improvements here and there. Every day we wake up in our workshop and decide what we want to do. There's fishing, farming, scavenging, mining, and dungeon delving, which all result in an awful lot of manufacturing to be done. Like a survival crafter, we spend a lot of time combining materials we find in the wild to make specific products. It's what I personally refer to as a menu game. And we use those products to complete daily contracts that are our main source of income, or just gifts, gear, or to sell. But like I said, there's some massive improvements to the formula here. One, we have an index that lets us look up the location of any material we've ever found, greatly streamlining those late game quests where you can't remember where to find the third tier rock you need for that teddy bear. Second, adjustable day length. Standard time seems to be about 20 minutes a day, but you can slow that down to give yourself twice as much time, or set each day to pass in 5 minutes if you like. It's a really refreshing amount of control. I like to keep my days at around 1.5 speed, where it felt like I could do everything I wanted without the days dragging on. There's a stamina system to limit your daily activities, although with some easy methods for restoration. Progress is filtered mostly by ore type. Advance the story, unlock a new mining location, then use that ore to build new tools and unlock additional options. The mining system is pretty unique. We enter areas known as abandoned ruins, old world shopping malls and science labs now full of dust and dirt. And we get picking, slowly uncovering the landscape and filling our packs with relics and ores. It hits the same kind of itch I get from coloring in the map in a Total War game, which is odd considering how different these tasks are. Since Sandrock takes place in a desert, there's some desert living realities reflected in the mechanics, namely water. Our refining machines need water to run, but our plants also need water to grow, and our animals like to drink as well. We can't generate water very easily, so we need to constantly make trips to the water store and buy that sweet, sweet imported H2O. It acts as another throttle to our progress. The other neat aspect of desert living is timber. And this ties into the game's major themes of conservation and teamwork. The residents of Sandrock really do not like it when you cut down trees. I have no idea what happens if you cut down too many trees, because the first time I did it, this little weirdo came up and politely asked me to stop. It's good enough a reason as any.
Why, if I saw you chopping down trees, I don't know if I would want to be your friend anymore.
It's hollowed out a little bit in the late game. Once you're outside the immediate area around town, you can cut down infinitely respawning trees without any adverse effects. You don't even get a scolding. I'll warn everyone now. If you play this game with haste in your heart, you are not going to have a good time. This is an intentionally slow-moving game. It's begging you to stick around and soak in the atmosphere. I started off on half speed and found it really enjoyable. The days were long enough to easily meet the daily production, go on scavenging runs, eat at the diner, and go talk to all the locals. But I cranked the time up mostly because I remembered I had to make a review, and the game was still 100 hours long. There's also the social side of the game, befriending the townsfolk by regularly talking to them, completing jobs for them, that sort of thing. The entire population of townsfolk get new unvoiced dialogue lines almost every time we complete a new main mission, and after most of the side quests. I don't think I've ever played a game where the characters had this much to say. And really, this is one of the few games of this genre that compelled me to listen. I wanted to get to know these characters. They aren't quite the hollow, constantly repeating weirdos of Animal Crossing. They're more like, well, they're like late 90s sitcom characters. Most of them have a main quirk that drives the humor, then the plot scenes are punctuated by those quirks interacting. We develop expectations for them quickly and then see them reinforced or subverted over and over, see how they react to failures and successes. 100 hours is what, 10 seasons of a TV show? There's also a ton of flavor to the writing that just makes me stop and go, wait, didn't Third Rock from the Sun do that same thing all the time?
Point.
Mama! Life had just begun. And now I've gone and thrown it all away.
It's a really interesting tone that I rarely encounter in games. I'm not going to say it's incredibly deep or complex characterization, but it drives the humor really well and results in a very whimsical, lighthearted adventure. There's a main storyline that can take a few in-game years to complete, plus what must be hundreds of side quests. And a surprising amount of it is voice acted. Most of the characters are romanceable if that's your thing. It's not really my thing, but I did engage with it and end up marrying the local absentee single mother for research purposes. As far as I can tell, the romances end up introducing additional quest lines that result in marriage, children, the whole shebang, or divorce. Lots of options. Characters also come and go. Sometimes they move out, sometimes they're forced out, and sometimes it comes down to you whether you want this character out of the town forever or want to see them come back. And new characters move in occasionally, so the cast doesn't feel too stale, even by the late game. Probably the best thing I can say about this. At the end of the game, when my 100 hours were through and credits rolled up, I really felt that bittersweet twang. The kind of feeling I got as a kid wrapping up some epic JRPG. Party's over, my buddies are gone, but I can visit anytime. It's pretty rare for games to give me that specific feeling anymore. Most of the story deals with the revitalization of Sandrock through telesis. None of the voice cast can agree on the pronunciation. Basically, through camaraderie and working together and saving all the little plants and animals, we can make a better world. Except in this case, it's mostly just the player character being so incredibly good at everything they try that everything goes right through sheer volume of fire. There's a lot of twists, turns, and obvious sub-chapters in the story. It really does feel like it's organized into sitcom-styled seasons and episodes, with a strong through line, admittedly. To be fair, there's also a lot of things going on in this game that I generally dislike in games. I've said before that I hate when a game tries to become a job, and, well, there's certainly a bit of that going on here with the daily repetition of chores. I do think Sandrock does an excellent job of making all the chores feel optional, though. I didn't like raising chickens, since you need to muck the coop and individually pet them every day. So I just sold them all off and suffered no real ill effects, because you can source your income equally well from any of the activities. Fairly late game, we also gain access to a helper, who we can assign to complete the more tedious tasks for us. This works well, but be warned that you don't get any experience for the helper's tasks, so it can be easy to slowly fall behind on levels without realizing it. There's really two issues I had with the game. The first is the combat. This is brain-dead combat. Left-click attacks, string a few together for a combo, and right-click is a dodge roll. For the majority of the game, I was so sturdy compared to my enemies that I was really just dodging for sport. There's a neat twist with the break mechanic, deplete an enemy's meter and they're stunned and take extra damage, but the combat overall felt very bland and impossible to lose unless you really stopped paying attention. The second issue I had was the length. I genuinely believe no single-player game should be longer than about 60 hours, and around 12 is my ideal. Personal preference. While it's impressive that this game has a story that keeps going for 90 hours, it also really feels like it drops off after the climax, somewhere around the 60-hour mark. Around 50 hours is also when I started running into persistent, weird bugs. Characters wandering off in cutscenes, more spelling errors, just a general lack of polish after a game that felt surprisingly polished up until that point. There's also some minor gripes. The animation could be better, sure, the voice acting could be worse and funnier, but nothing that really tarnished my overall experience with the game. There's a lot of the general roughness of edges I expect from an indie game, especially one this ambitious, but I'm pretty tolerant of those little oddities. Oh, the achievements. Yeah, there's one achievement that requires you to max out all of the knowledge trees in the game. The combat tree gains a point with every weapon strike, the social tree gains a point every time you talk to someone, or 5 points every time you give a gift, and so on. To max them out takes somewhere around 20,000 points. For a game that really succeeds in letting you choose your own playstyle, this achievement is a real son of a bitch to get. My last 10 hours or so were just grinding interactions and farming monsters. But hey, that's optional, and I doubt most players care enough to grab the full suite of trophies. So, it's a minor qualm. Overall, I loved this game. It's a shame that it's so long, I will almost certainly never have time to play through it again. A lot of our enjoyment of games is situational, depending on how we're doing in life, stuff like that, and my time at Sandrock just happened to be exactly the chill, humorous experience I needed right now. On the trusty pain scale, I'd give it a painless. It's got a heart of gold and veins of low-grade silver. Take your time with it, get to know the characters, push off your obsessive need to complete every task every day, and you'll have a really good time, if you can get into the graphics. Well, that's all for my 40th review. Feels like I just started yesterday. I've picked up a ton of short indie games over the past few months, so I'm probably going to carve out some time for playing through those and making short videos for them. Seems like all the big releases this year are 80-hour affairs, so I'm losing hope of covering any of them while they're still relevant to YouTube. Oh well. You can only play one game at a time, and a $6 shooter from 2005 is usually just as good as an $80 game from yesterday. Thanks for tuning in. See ya.